Well, it certainly was a busy week in Parliament as they wrap up for another year. And joining us live is Bruce Hawker, founder of Hawker Britain, and now Special Counsel at Fitzpatrick and Co-Advisory. You've got quite the CV, haven't you?
That's right. Well, the older you get, the longer it gets.
Oh, well, very impressive indeed. So let's wrap up the week.
Well, it was all about Parliament, I think, from my perspective. And we saw the government push through 45 bills in the last day, which was a remarkable number and quite an achievement, I guess. And some of them were quite historic, I think. The one particularly that took my attention was the ban on social media for kids under 16. And that is attracting international attention because we're essentially the first country that's tried something like that. And I think the fact that it received bipartisan support suggests that the government and the opposition know that they're on a winner with this one. But that was just one of many pieces of legislation that went through that the government, I think, will be looking to try to build on as they go into election season. You know, the housing reforms that they've introduced force the Greens into a back down, and that will give relief to young people wanting to buy the houses. It's not going to solve the housing problem, but it will make life easier. That was a big success. HECS fees that graduates have to deal with these days are going to be reduced significantly. There's been a number of measures that I think they will try to build on in the election campaign.
Yeah, the speech yesterday with the Prime Minister, I think you mentioned, or Jim Chalmers as well, saying it wasn't a record with what they got through, but certainly a lot. Yeah, I mean, we've been speaking a lot this morning on the social media bans. We had a child psychologist on who gave us, you know, pros and cons. Stephen Fennick thinks it's pretty much doomed from a tech point of view, but a lot of stuff is obviously going to be implemented for the year. But it's interesting, isn't it? You made mention of getting worldwide attention because Australia's getting quite a lot of attention, aren't we? I mean, on the platform X, Elon Musk saying his comments about the social media ban, and of course, our former boss here and the ABC chair now, Kim Williams, at the press club.
Yep.
Talking about Joe Rogan and his podcast.
Indeed, and then attracting some interest from Joe Rogan in response. I mean, we might be forgiven for thinking that Kim actually put that out there to increase interest in his address to the press club. I don't know, but look, it just shows that the nature of media is changing so dramatically, and it does. And Joe Rogan is a fascinating character. He's got a massive audience in the United States, largely amongst apparently younger, disengaged politically men. And that was why Donald Trump was prepared to sit down with him just days out from an election for 3 hours and do an interview. This is what the world is dealing with, I guess, and that's all what we're talking about now. How 16-year-olds and unders deal with those sorts of problems. How girls particularly have real issues in social media with self-imaging, targeting younger people. All these things are so massively challenging, and the world is moving at a pace. It makes you wonder whether somewhere along the line people are going to say, slow down. And maybe this is part of it. Maybe.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, we talk about the fact that social media, some of it is so short and it's, affecting our attention span. But then you look at Joe Rogan's 3 to 4 hour podcast and you think, wow, like there's such a...
difference, isn't it? Like we talk about, the 7-second grab and so forth. That's the attention span.
But then people can sit there for 4 hours.
4 hours and talk to a guy about
we might
whatever.
have to get you on for 5 hours and see how we go.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think we'll be getting pretty dull by the end.
Oh, come on. But no, it's interesting, and I believe that Joe Rogan was a Democrat, now is a Republican. I think Elon was as well. So it's interesting seeing people's movements
There's
change.
A lot of fluidity in all this. People are getting with the power, I guess, in the case of Trump. He attracts disruptors, clearly, and I think Musk is a great example of a disruptor with what he's done in his own enterprises like Tesla and so forth, and to some extent X, which is actually proving to be a bit of a big loser for him in terms of money at the moment, but and I guess Rogan as well. So this is the changing nature of politics as well, and I think it's all tied in intricately and almost inextricably with social media and the pace with which it's moving. Now we're seeing AI coming into the picture at a rate of knots that's just phenomenal. Even in my own business, where we're talking about AI a lot, we've got clients who are coming in on on these AI-related issues. It's a real challenge to keep up.
It sure is. And I think as well, looking at the situation with Kim Williams and Joe Rogan, I had look at a lot of different feedback, and it's very divided with who liked what or whatever. But I found it interesting because a lot of people were sort of saying, whether people have watched the ABC or Sky News or Joe Rogan, how can you comment if you haven't seen these particular programs or these particular podcasts?
Yeah, I think you can comment to an extent if you've got a good flavour for what they've been saying and doing. But if you have got 3 or 4 hours to spend to listen to him, then it's probably worthwhile to sit down and actually try to get a sense of what it is that people are engaging with him on, and vice versa. I mean, one thing I'm absolutely certain about is that if the Democrats, Labor Party, other progressive parties don't engage with people who are essentially disengaged at the moment, then they're doomed to go on a downward spiral. You're seeing these harder right sort of parties or leaders coming in and talking to these people, empathising with a populist sort of a perspective on things, and suddenly they're rising up the ranks in terms of the popularity. This is where parties, particularly parties with a bit of an ideological sort of or philosophical basis, have got to be very careful. They've got to keep talking to people who might otherwise be voting for One Nation or whoever, in the case of the Labor Party. In the case of the Liberals, they've got to be talking to people who would otherwise be voting Teal. And this is where, for us as political commentators and analysts, it becomes very challenging, because the traditional ways in which we see politics in Australia and the United States and the UK, pretty much anywhere in the Western world, has changed. The big two-party structures are gone. Labor and Liberals don't control 80% of the vote as they once did. Yep. They cover something like 60.
Strap in for the ride.
Indeed.
Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenny.